I'll be moving here for that 7-8.
So, Tammy, my friend this morning said our new state slogan is going to be a toast and a smile.
Call the Rules Committee to order. It is 1 o'clock. Councilor Taylor, would you bless
I
me?
sure would. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity to gather here today to do the work of the Cherokee people. We pray that you will be with us throughout these meetings and let us make good decisions where our tribe is concerned. We pray that you will put a hedge of protection around our military, both here and abroad, keep them safe as they keep us safe. Be with us this evening as we go our separate ways. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Roll call, Shelley.
Sir.
What's up, Ray?
Joe Bird.
Honey.
Ryan Warner.
Honey.
Gil England.
Honey.
Keith Austin.
Here.
Charlie Buzzard.
Here.
Sean Crittenden.
Honey.
Mike Dobbins.
Here.
Frankie Hargis. Wanda Hatfield.
Honey.
Rex Jordan.
Here.
Dick Lay.
Honey.
Mike Shambaugh.
Here.
Mary Bakershaw.
Honey.
E.O. Smith.
Here.
Denise Taylor.
Here.
Victoria Vasquez.
Honey.
David Walkingstick.
Honey.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Shelley. Frankie Hargis is doing well. She said she had an appointment today, so she could not be here, but she's with us in spirit, so keep her in prayer. We miss her. This time I'd entertain approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Got a motion? A second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Got reports. Marshal Shanbuell.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Besides the report, the written report that you have, some of the things that's been going on lately. This Saturday at 9 o'clock, we'll be in Tenkiller State Park. The Marshal Service dive team will. We're helping a function called the Underwater Olympics. All the proceeds benefit Make-A-Wish Foundation. They've asked our team to kind of be the sponsoring team to go help and be judges on different things. So we're going to be down there for that most of the day on Saturday. Some of you read in the paper, seen in the news, our dive team recovered the 18-year-old young man that was from Muskogee that jumped off the bluffs over at Burnt Cabin area in Tenkiller and drowned. We recovered him about a week and a half ago. So that was a somber recovery. Anytime a young man needlessly dies from an accident, that's a horrible day. But we take comfort in the fact that we got that young man back to his mom and dad. So that's always important to us. Our special operations team has had several things from hostage rescue in Claremore to a couple armed barricaded gunman situations in Adair County. So we've been very active for the past month. Some months is like that, and some months we don't do anything. So this is one of those up-tempo months. So other than that, if there's any questions you have for me. Oh, also, some of the council has asked me offline about doing cross depositions, renewing them with different, if a police chief in your area or a sheriff in your area, if there's a new one and they want to do a new one, we're more than happy to do that. The cross dep continues no matter who the police chief is or the sheriff or even me. Once we sign one, it goes on forever unless one of us pulls it out. But we know administrations change, we know police chiefs change, and if they want us to come up to sign new cards and take photos, we're more than happy to come up and do that. So if you have any people, any police chiefs or sheriffs in your districts that want that done, just shoot me an email, and I'll have my the staff that handles cross deps to get with them and make that happen for you. So.
Marshal, what would you just send out if any of the council members' district currently doesn't have cross deputization? Would you send that out?
I don't know of anybody that doesn't, to be honest.
Okay, so we're all good?
I think we have over 60 cross deps every county.
Okay.
So I think that we're good. Just some of them, there's a new police chief that gets on, and even though the cross is good by legal terms, that newly elected sheriff or that newly elected police chief might want that that ability to say that, or they might just have questions of, hey, what about this cross step? What does it mean? What does it not mean? And we go around our communities to police chiefs and department heads that ask us to come out and talk about Indian country, talk about cross steps, talk about what the nation can do for them and what we can't, quite frankly, do for them. You know, we had an agency or a town up north call me and want us to take over police work in their town. They wanted to get rid of their police department and have us their police department. I had to, quite frankly, just tell them I can't do that. I have 33 officers for 9,000 square miles. I can't be the Cherokee Nation and I'm not going to say the town, and the town's police. I can't do that. So some of those things that we can bring is bring people in there that can talk about what we can and what we cannot do. So.
Councilor Walker.
Hey, Shannon, are you guys escorting that McCoy kid coming in from?
Frankie Dreadful-Water, one of our officers, is with him right now.
Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Speaker.
Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Baker.
Yes. Shannon, do you anticipate, let me rephrase that. In the past, has Cherokee Nation helped with the wildfires out on the West Coast?
The Marshal Service have. We have not. We have the fire dancers, and I do believe, even though they're not under me or my department, I believe they go out and do that quite a bit. I think that's one of their primary jobs, is go to Oregon, Montana, California, Colorado. I think they're all over the country doing those things. So.
Thank you.
Good. Anybody else? Good report.
Right,
Thank you. And job well done on the rescue.
Oh, thank you.
Office of the Attorney General, Chrissy Nemo.
Afternoon. I have a couple of things. You all got a copy of our petition as well as our press release in our new opioid case. We sued Purdue, which is the manufacturer of opioids. Our previous lawsuit was against the distributors and retail pharmacies, making similar claims that they knew that pills were being shipped in at a higher level than they could have a legitimate medical use. We also filed that in state court in Sequoyah County under state law claims. We anticipate that they will attempt to remove that case with the federal multi-district litigation as they have attempted with our other one, and we will fight that. We want these cases heard in our communities where our people may be on the juries and our neighbors may be on the juries. So our goal is to get a jury trial in Sequoyah County on those opioid cases. But it's big litigation and lots of lawyers on it, so it may take a while. We were served, actually the Marshal Service was served week before last in a case filed in Delaware County. There was a woman who was killed in a car wreck when a person who was shoplifting from Walmart and ran and hit her, and she died in the car accident. And our marshal was named as a defendant in that, so we were served, and our office will be defending that. We also, normally I wouldn't mention this to you all, but I saw on the certificate of service that courtesy copies were sent to tribal council. We had a C&E employee whose gaming license was revoked by the Gaming Commission, and he has appealed that decision to our Cherokee Nation District Court, as the law allows him to do. And for whatever reason, his attorney sent copies of his appeal to tribal council and to the chief's office, I think. So just so you all know, because I don't know how you actually got copies of that our office is who represents the Gaming Commission on those appeals. So the other thing that happened this week, and we've got lots of questions, including from some of you all, is that Oklahoma voted to legalize medical marijuana. And we've had lots of questions about what that means for us, how it affects us, how it affects our citizens. So if you'll allow me about 5 or 10 minutes, I want to give you guys a quick overview of the rule and talk about what that means to Cherokee Nation, what it doesn't mean to Cherokee Nation, because we're getting lots of calls and questions about it. Briefly, the effective date of the law currently is 1 month after passage. So the timeline for turnaround, absent something else happening at the state legislature, is pretty short for what they have to do. Within 30 days of passage of the act, the state has to make available applications to individuals to apply to be an individual medical marijuana license holder, and also make applications available to businesses. There are 4 classes licenses dispensaries, which are the actual retail shops where you walk in and buy it, commercial growers, processors who process the plants in either their pure form as leaves or put them into edibles or oils or whatever else, and transportation, because you have to get it from where you grow it to where you sell it, and you only want people who are licensed to do all of those things. They also, within 60 days of the passage of the law, have to establish a regulatory office under the State Department of Health and standards for things including the preparation of edible products, because if it's food, then you want laws about how you prepare food applying to that as well. The application, once submitted, they have to respond in 14 days of either approving or denying the application. And if an application is approved, what it allows the individual licensee to do is to consume medical marijuana without any type of criminal penalty. And it also allows them to possess certain amounts. And the law lays out how many plants you can possess, how much concentrated oil you can possess, how many other, which would be edible products, you can possess. And it also provides protections for individual license holders from other laws. So, for example, it says that schools and landlords can't discriminate against people because they're the holder of a medical marijuana license. So if you're a renter, you can't say you can't rent to me because you may use marijuana in the home. Now, there's still going to be reasonable restrictions on where people can, for example, smoke in public and those types of things. It also says that employers cannot penalize unless they would otherwise lose federal funding or some type of license. So like, for example, DOT requires drug tests, and there are people like air traffic controllers who can't even have certain prescription medications in their system. So those things will still apply, but you cannot discriminate in employment because someone may be a license holder. And it specifically says that you cannot take action against employees solely because of a positive drug test if they are a license holder. You can take action, the law says, if they possess or use medical marijuana on work premises or during work hours. And obviously, if someone is intoxicated and they can't perform their job, you could and should still take action against them. But if you are someplace that does a random drug screen and they test positive for marijuana and they have a medical marijuana license and there's no evidence that it's otherwise impacted their job, you cannot terminate them from employment for that under state law. And one of the really, I think, important protections under the state law is it specifically mentions custody and visitation, that if you are a parent and you have a medical marijuana license, the court cannot use that against you unless you are otherwise endangering the child. So if you leave something out and a child ingests it, that can be used against you, just like it could be if they ingested opioids or even some illicit drug. But the fact that you are a license holder and a user of medical marijuana can't be used against you in custody proceedings, which would apply to parents in divorce, but it would also apply in things like ICW cases, deprived cases, because parents are tested for drugs often in those cases, and if you have a legitimate need to use it. So that's the state law, and the question is, well, what does that mean to us? And legally, it means nothing because state law doesn't apply to the Cherokee Nation. But there are some areas that both this body as well as administration will have to take into consideration going forward. So some of the things that I've talked about, for example, employment. We do drug tests here. So if we have a Cherokee Nation employee who tests positive for marijuana and holds a medical marijuana license, under our policy, we could terminate them for that. Under state law, a private employer or a state employer would not be able to terminate them for that. So that's an area that we will want to consider what we're going to do with that. Also in court, because the state law says state courts can't use that to discriminate against parents. There's nothing that says our courts can't. So parents who are getting divorced and arguing over custody in Cherokee Nation court, one could still claim that because one parent is a medical marijuana user that entitles them to have their custody or visitation affected, and the state law wouldn't protect those Cherokee citizens who have a state license but are going through our court. Also, how our health system will react to it, because you don't get a prescription for it per se. The way the law works, you fill out an application, and a Oklahoma board certified physician has to say that you have a medical condition for which you should be using medical marijuana. If the license is approved, you simply get a card, and it's good for 2 years, and you go into the dispensary and buy the amounts that you can legally have. So it's not like you get a prescription every month or every 6 months for it. And how that will affect us specifically is many of our citizens, their only physicians are physicians at Hastings. So policy considerations about to what extent will our healthcare providers be helping their patients with these applications? Will there be a list of conditions that they approve it for or not approve it for? That was one of the criticisms of the law by those who opposed it, was it didn't list out the conditions for which you can be prescribed medical marijuana. It is up to your doctor to use their reasonable judgment and medical education to say, yes, this is something that would help my patient, and I'm going to certify that they need it, and then they get the license. So the other, I think probably the biggest and most immediate issue for us will be the criminal possession issue, and this is where the question comes up: can I take my marijuana to the casino? Again, it doesn't technically affect us at all. Cherokee Nation law still criminalizes possession of marijuana. Federal law, misdemeanor criminal possession on federal lands, and without getting too technical, under assimilated and Indian country crimes, it can be a federal misdemeanor for any person to possess on Indian country or on federal land. It's a crime under Cherokee Nation law for Indians, because we only have jurisdiction over Indians to possess, which means that you could have an Indian and a non-Indian at the casino. Both of them are medical marijuana license holders. Both of them have product on them, and for whatever reason they're searched or they drop it or whatever, they could be treated very differently under the law, because Cherokee Nation law still criminalizes possession even if it is for medical use, where state law does not, and federal law may depend on whether or not the person is an Indian or not, because is it applying state law or federal law. So some complicated jurisdictional questions for law enforcement going forward. And then the other thing, kind of separate from how it applies to us directly and what decisions we have to make about the extent to which we want to make our law look like or not look like the state of Oklahoma. This is not new. I think it said that Oklahoma was the 30th state to legalize for medical purposes. Most of the states who have legalized have tribes in those states too, so other tribes have dealt with this. But a decision for tribal leadership to make will be whether or not this will be something that the tribe wants to use as an economic opportunity, diversified business. Tribes are obviously better at states because they're smaller and quicker on passing regulation and laws and rules and those types of things. So there could be an opportunity if tribal leadership wished to kind of get ahead of what the state is doing on this, because I think we've already seen from some of the reactions in public from some of our elected officials that this may take a while, even though the law says it's supposed to take effect in 30 days and they're supposed to have license in 30 days. I think that it will be a while. Arkansas passed it more than a year ago and have yet to issue any license because it's been tied up in court. So although it passed in Oklahoma, there's still a lot of hurdles to overcome before someone can get a card and walk into a store and purchase a product and consume it. So that is the nutshell version of it. I'll answer any questions you have about it, and if anyone wants to talk offline or has any additional questions about it, I'd be happy to answer those.
Have any questions for Chrissy? Councilor Buzzer.
I do have one question that's been brought up to me, and I saw this someplace about if you have an application in for this marijuana, you cannot purchase a permit to get a gun.
I think there's a little bit of wiggle room there. I read a news article.
Yeah,
I think that they took some liberties with, so there are federal laws about you can't use illicit substances if you're a gun owner. Marijuana is still, the one thing I didn't clarify, it is still a controlled substance, Schedule 1 under federal law. But as we have seen over several years where it's been legalized in other states, that federal law enforcement it's not high on their list to prosecute possession of marijuana. Again, I think that may be technically correct, but I also don't think when you go in to buy a firearm, that they're, running through registries to see whether or not you have a medical marijuana license. Also, just because you have a license doesn't mean that you're buying or using the product. It could be an older license. You could have decided that you don't need it anymore. It's not helping you. So I do not believe being the holder of a medical marijuana license in and of itself prohibits you from purchasing or owning a firearm. But I think there's some real kind of legal... But I did read that article too, and I felt like they left a lot of stuff out from that. So
I don't know that the majority here are for or against it, but I think you're going to see a lot of elderly people that's probably going to apply for it because of the aches and pains when they get up to sit down and go to bed. That's a good thing. So I think you're going to see some of our native people going to apply for the license for it. So I think the sooner we can get a policy on the thing, the better off we're going to be, or they're going to be. Thanks, sir.
Anybody else? Council Critton.
Yes. So do you think like the anxiety and the PTSD, did they say anything about, would that kind of qualify someone? Or?
So again, there are no, some states did specific conditions that you can only get it if you have these things, but Oklahoma law did not. So all you have to have is a Oklahoma board certified physician that says you should be allowed to use medical marijuana to treat X condition, and it is up to that doctor to determine whether or not, again, in their judgment and education, that they believe. So all of those things are possible conditions which you would be able to get a license for, but it is up to the individual physician to make that determination.
The election was just, of course, a couple of days ago, but what, it's federal land, all of the Cherokee Nation, different facilities. Have you guys had a chance to talk about what our stance is going to be? Keep it away from our casinos, hospitals.
So again, currently it's illegal. Possession,
Currently.
use, growth,
What do you
anything
think
in
you
Cherokee
guys
Nation.
What's the Attorney General?
Well, unless the law changes, our opinion is it's illegal and it's a crime.
What was you talking about where the non-Indian and the Indian, what was you talking about there?
So
Could be different.
under tribal law, it's a crime to possess marijuana, but we only have criminal jurisdiction over Indians. So if there's a non-Indian at the casino who possesses marijuana, only the state or federal government could prosecute them. The state has now said if you have a medical marijuana license and it's only this amount, it's no longer a crime. So in that situation, the only person who could prosecute a non-Indian who is possessing marijuana on tribal land would be the federal government. And they have not made a priority of going after people who are possessing. This has been kind of a big deal in Indian country because of how they're treated in states that have made it legal. And several years ago, there was a memo that came out from the Department of Justice that basically said we're going to kind of treat tribes the same way that we treat states, in that if you legalize it and regulate it, we'll kind of give you the benefit of the doubt. But with the current administration, they have made clear that marijuana is illegal under federal law, and to the extent that it applies in Indian country, that they tend to enforce it. So the current administration at the federal level has taken a harder stance on tribes' abilities to not so much legalize it for individual possession, but to grow or sell it as a tribal entity. But of course, because it's legal at the state level now, you know, a Cherokee business could go apply to be a distributor under state law, just like we could open a convenience store down the road without any, it wouldn't have any actual tribal law implications.
What did you say about the smoking it? That's not going to be allowed, right?
Right, so any like ordinance that says you can't smoke in restaurants and that type of thing, I think generally across the board would apply to smoking marijuana. Now in the casino, you allow smoking in certain areas, so it will be up to the casinos to determine whether or not they institute rules or laws that prohibit the smoking of marijuana and still allow the smoking of cigarettes. Yeah.
Well, that's a good thing. I have to give new meaning to Lucky Duck.
But again, at this point, it's not a decision because it's still illegal. So if you smoke it there right now, you're going to be arrested whether or not you, because it's illegal.
And let me ask you on the, I know we can't get into specifics, but now are you representing the case against the employee who had his gaming license taken away and is appealing it?
Right, so he has an attorney. His license was revoked by the commission, and that is appealed, and the district court reviews it, and our office represents the gaming commission and tells the court that they should uphold the decision of the gaming commission, and this is why.
And will it, I know that case really well, so I won't get into the details about it, but is there a possibility that who's ever on the appeal, that it could go in his favor, right?
Right, so right now it's just before a district judge, and they will make a decision as to whether or not to affirm the gaming commission decision, and if the individual license holder does not like that decision, they can appeal it to the Cherokee Nation Supreme Court. Or if we lose, we could appeal it to the Supreme Court.
That was a scary deal, and I think I can be careful here, but let's say this is another case, not this one. But,
Let's be real careful.
There was a Cherokee young man with a family making X amount of dollars on this other case. And of course, I hadn't seen the surveillance or anything, but it seemed really, really quick to take that. And I told Jamie I have a lot of confidence in him. But I hated that situation. It was thousands to not thousands of what this guy's going to be taking home to his family. So it left a bad taste in my mouth. That leads me to Speaker. We talked about a member of council being on like an advisory member to the Gaming Commission. And at this time, I understand there's a slot for it, but no council member is an advisory member. So can you see or talk about how we can go about doing that? Because I would have liked to been in on this case in particular, probably as well as others. How do we do that, Speaker?
We'll take a look at that, and we'll get with the Chrissy and Talina and see how we go about that. Because some of that stuff is proprietary information. It's good for some council members to know about it, and sometimes it's better if we don't know about it. Because I don't want to be going in front of a deposition if you don't have to.
But there is a slot available for.
I think so.
Is that right, Jamie?
Yes.
And it's not filled, right?
Why are we discussing this?
Excuse me?
I think you all would know that.
Huh?
You all would know whether or not it's filled.
Well, I didn't know that until this case came up.
The way the travel ordinance is written, there is a 3-member advisory body that would be coming from the tribal council to sit on the gaming commission. That was a part of the ordinance that was amended back in 2014. But so far we don't have that advisory board named.
When can we do that?
That's up to this body.
Jamie, when are the meetings held? When are the meetings held?
We are set to actually have one tomorrow. We meet approximately every 28 days, so at least once a month, sometimes 2, depending on how the months fall.
How many council members could be on that?
3.
And anyone can come as long as there's not more than 8.
Yeah, all of our meetings are open
Right.
meetings.
I understand that, but if there's something in the paperwork that says 3 council members can be on that board, and there's a empty slot like this young man that we were talking about, I was highly interested in that when he called me, and I would have liked to have been sitting there doing whatever I could in his favor, and so I'd like to know, and I know there's a few, if not all, folks sitting here that would like their own nose in something like that when it concerns a family, Cherokee family that went from here to here fast. So I look forward to figuring out how we we get our own nose in that thing.
Okay, we'll get with you.
Just so the
Councilor Taylor.
council knows, sorry, that
Wait a minute.
I was
Councilor
just, wait,
Taylor.
before you leave, Jamie, we are invited to those meetings and we can attend at any time as long as we don't have a quorum. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, that's the way I've always understood it.
Right,
Okay,
I
thank you.
understand that too. But as you know, we got commissioners for about everything. And this one just happens to be void, these positions that we could fill. So that I understand we can go to the meetings. But like I said, my only interest is, not only interest, but a big interest is guys like that guy. And I know there's others that's heard that story too. And I know a cut in pay that much would highly affect my 4 little children running around. And I know it's affecting that Cherokee family. So that's why I was asking.
Sure. Councilor
For the
Hatfield?
record, you did send us your information on your meetings. I have.
Scheduled.
Scheduled, yes, scheduled
Okay.
meetings.
Yes.
I don't know, yeah, so we should know about them.
and we publish them on the website too, because they're
Right.
under open meetings. We
Right,
have
but
to.
I just know,
Correct.
I personally have a copy, so you have been good at sending us those things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, the meeting schedule does have the dates, times, and locations printed on all of them, so there should be an easy way to find us.
Any other questions for, we started out with legalizing marijuana here, but that's okay. Any other questions to Chrissy here? Because Jamie's going to report later. Yes, Councilor Buzzer.
I got a question for Christian. Probably a year ago, Chrissy, we had met with a company that was going to do research and maybe file some claims against the U.S. government on old treaties. Is that company, are they still working to do that?
We did file that suit and trust accounting claim, and you all did receive a copy of that. We filed the suit. The United States government has filed a motion to dismiss,
Okay.
and that is briefed. That was filed in the Western District and Federal District Court in Oklahoma. And at this point, we're just awaiting a decision from the judge, and there's no timeline.
That's been over a year since we've
Yeah,
done that.
yeah, and there's no timeline on which the judge has to rule, so it's just
We're
kind of
waiting on the judge.
hanging out there, yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, any current updates on litigation? We good?
Hanging out, waiting on judges to give us orders.
Okay, all right,
Thank you.
yes. Next, Wynn Terrapin.
I'll be glad to let Jamie go ahead and go if you'd like.
That's all.
And he can do my report too.
That's really good of you, but you're already seated.
For FOIA and GRA, we've had 9 total requests so far. We've got 8 on the FOIA side and 1 on the GRA. We've had 3 new FOIA requests, and those are outstanding at this time. And everything's been updated on the website, and everyone should have also received a copy of that.
Okay, any questions? Gwen, good report.
Thank you.
Well, you really caught us up. We were behind before you came on board. Tax Commission. It's not Sharon Swepston, but it's a familiar face, Fonda.
Hello, I'm Fonda Gritz, and I am sitting in for Sharon today. She's out today with her husband. He's having a little procedure. Sharon said she had sent the reports out, so I guess you have the report. She said if you have any questions, that, I can take the questions back to her, and she'd be more than happy to get with everyone and answer as best she could.
Any questions for the Tax Commission? You did good. Councilor Buzzer?
I don't have a question, Fonda, but I have been trying to get a handicap ramp repaired at J Tag Office for 3 months. I had asked Gary Cooper about what we could do, and he said he did not have a problem with doing what needs to be done to get it fixed. We have handicapped people that use that tag office, so it doesn't need to be done. I know the last time I talked to Sharon, I think it was 3 meetings ago, she mentioned something about the housing authority, but Gary Cooper told me they didn't have a problem with letting her do what we need to get done. And I don't know that if we try to meet ADA requirements or not for a building, but we should. That doesn't meet an ADA requirement up there. So that is my question to her today is when is it going to get done?
Actually, they are preparing, Housing Authority is preparing to do that as we speak. Andy had went down and met with some people earlier this week, and he said that they were, actually I've increased our PO there at G.H. Rogers to get the materials, and they're supposed to start on it here pretty quick.
Well, I didn't, looking at, from where I looked at it, didn't look like it'd be that expensive, so maybe it won't cost.
And I don't think it really is going to be.
Good. It's frustrating to wait on for 3 or 4 months, but I understand how the federal government used to work. It used to be a lot more faster than that, but it seems to me like we've bogged down. Thanks, sir.
Yes, Mr. Secretary, would you check on that project? And if we need to come back to the council, because Councilor Buzzard brought this up,
Months.
it wasn't the beginning of time, but it was a few years ago. And if we all need to chip in, we'll get that thing done. If it's a handicap ramp we need, you know, that's probably a priority of his. Let's see if we can't accomplish that.
Yeah, we'll do it, sir. Okay,
thank you very much. Thank you, Fonda. Yes, Councilor Bakershaw.
Yes, Fonda.
Fonda, one more.
I have a couple of questions actually.
She likes the color of your dress.
It's very pretty. It's a beautiful dress on you. Yes. Fonda, I received 2 calls just in the last week about the lack of staff up up at our vehicle registration place. What am I saying? Car tag agency. Anyway, I received 2 complaints about the lack of staff and about the wait with people. Why is there not enough staff when we're up 11% total, actually more than 11% for the year? Why are we down on staffing?
Okay, I'll take that question to Sharon.
Would you please? Yes.
I will. What's your name?
I'm Mary.
Mary, okay.
Yes. But we're up 11.18% on our total for the year, increased in both tags and vehicle tags, and yet our staffing has not changed. Right. And I've received 2 complaints just this last week on it.
Okay, I'll let her know.
Yeah. Councilor Lay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you relay to Sharon, I still need a tag office in Millwater?
Okay,
appreciate it.
I'll tell her.
If the executive branch is listening in, I hope you heard that.
Do what?
These folks behind you. I'm trying to get their attention, Fonda. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Councilor England?
Yeah, thank you, Speaker. Fonda, and I'm getting the same complaints on that Tulsa office. I mean, it's the one that I drove out by there just to look at it, and they was lined up out the door.
Right, yeah. That's where we're having the problem, seems like, with the staff.
I think there's employees in Tulsa that work.
Right, yeah.
Good employee pool there.
I know that came up in our commission meeting this week, too, so they had a discussion on that also, so.
Good, I'm glad it's on your radar anyway. People were complaining to us.
Right, okay. Okay.
Councilor Shambaugh?
If you could you find out if what our staffing situation is for all of our tag agencies, just see if we're full or we're below or what? Because I get a few, and I understand, you know, a lot of people come in on their lunch and things like that, and certain times are more busy than others, but I've got a few complaints about it, the J office too, that they're so busy. Just wondering what their staffing was like.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Anybody else? All right, good report. Okay, Gaming Commission, James.
I think I'll sit in this seat. I don't know if it's this one that's hot or if it's this one. But I'm glad to see everyone today. Before I get into further any remarks or answer any questions, I would be remiss in my duty if I didn't recognize I have my esteemed chairman, John Sparks, with us today. So he is here to critique my performance. So please be gentle, be kind.
Okay.
I believe you have my report in your packet. In addition to that, there are just a couple of items I wanted to bring up to the committee's attention. One is just an update on where we are with roulette and craps. We have been actually meeting weekly, sometimes multiple times a week, to get everything ready for craps and roulette to, again, pardon the pun, to roll out in August. We are actually, as soon as I get finished here today, we have a conference call to go over some of the latest changes to some of the policies and procedures, as well as to the draft regulations for craps and roulette. The commission is set to vote on all of these items tomorrow, so hopefully we will be able to say after tomorrow we have a foundation in place on which our new games of craps and roulette will be based. So we're looking forward to that. Secondly, if you haven't seen the news, the NIGC announced on Tuesday, I believe it was, the FY 2017 gaming revenues for all of Indian country. The revenues for 2017 set at $32.4 billion, and this is a 3.9% increase over last year. And to kind of give you some perspective, when we were 4 years ago, we were sitting at $28.5 billion. So we've increased nearly $4 billion in revenue, Indian country as a whole, over the past 4 years. $1 billion a year.
What would it be in Oklahoma?
That I don't know. I haven't seen the breakdown of it. I went onto their website yesterday to see if I could kind of get a better idea of what that meant for our market here, but they don't have those numbers posted.
Okay. That's phenomenal how that has grown.
Yeah, and if you take a look at some of the numbers that will give you an idea for Oklahoma, the amount of fee payments that are made under our Tribal State Compact has grown continuously over the past 7 or 8 years, with our portion going to the state just increasing every year for the last 5 years. So it's just a testament not only to the people that are conducting all of our operations and, of course, our patrons, but I have to also acknowledge the regulators that play a part in that. Without some good regulation, without good operation, Indian country would not be seeing the size of success that we have in Indian gaming as it is today. So my hat's off to all tribal regulators and all the operators out there. It is a very tough job. It's a 24/7 job, and it's one that does make you look forward to coming to work most days, not every day, but most days. But it's a very dynamic business to be in, and just when you think you learned it all, there's something new.
Well, hats off to our tribal gaming commissions who make sure that everybody stays within policies and procedures there. Appreciate what you guys do, Jamie.
Thank you very much. With that, do you have any questions?
All right, any questions for Jamie? Counselor Buzzer.
Jamie, could you real quickly walk us through how a person's gaming license is revoked? Where does it start from, and who make the decision to revoke it?
Okay. Kind of give you a Reader's Digest version of the entire licensing process, if I might, because without a little bit of backstory, it might not make too much sense. So if I am a new applicant and I'm going in for a cashier job, I get interviewed by operations. They do a preliminary background check to make sure that my background is going to be more than likely probable that I will receive a gaming license. Once that is done, they hire the individual. We then get that information that the operations has pulled together on the preliminary check. We do an additional check and a little bit more in-depth check to make sure that the criminal, education, credit, everything on this individual is acceptable. Once we get that information in, all of the background information in, then it is up to the commission to decide whether or not me as an individual is able to obtain a license. If something came back on my background, if I had a felony, if I had a number of misdemeanors, if I had a lot of activity on my criminal history, that may be cause for alarm, and that may be something the commission takes into account when it comes to deciding on whether to grant or not grant a license. But for this exercise, I've already gotten my license. I've been working in this capacity. Something comes up after I have obtained my license. That something could be a criminal charge. That something could be a violation of our regulations. It could be a violation of a federal statute or a state statute. It could be a violation of something. What that something is will also dictate how the commission responds. In most cases, when it comes to things that are not criminal in nature, the Gaming Commission has a compliance department that we send out to investigate each reported incident. in cases where we have violations of a regulation or any other statute, we research everything that happened in that particular situation. Who was involved, who did what, when did they do it, why did they do it. We do a very extensive background, investigation into that, collect documents, do interviews of witnesses, collect surveillance footage. We obtain anything and everything that we can because we want to make sure that the commission has all available information for that. Once we have compiled all of the background and investigation material together, we present it to the commission with our findings and say that we believe that this violation is confirmed, that we can support that this was a violation, and we make a recommendation for some type of action, whether that's for a suspension of a license or whether that's for a revocation of a license. All of that information is provided to the person if they are found non-suitable to hold a gaming license, so that way they know what is being put in front of them. So if they were being told that they had a violation of XYZ regulation, the information that we provided along with that would show how that regulation was violated. They have the ability to come before the commission for a hearing prior to the commission making a final call on whether or not their license is either revoked or it is reinstated, if there are any conditions to that reinstatement as well. After that, much like what we're seeing today, if that individual decides that they disagree with the commission's decision, they have the ability to take that up to the next level, which is our district court. The way the statute is written, the district court conducts a review of the file. It does not necessarily grant a new trial or anything like that. They see if we followed our regulations and if we are able to support that a violation did occur. They make a review on the record and then they make a ruling on the record. After that, if that individual declines it, they have the ability to appeal it to the Supreme Court.
Does that individual have a right to come to the commission and defend himself?
Yes, they do. They also have the right to counsel. It's up to that person whether or not they bring counsel or not. All of that information is made known to them at the time that the notice goes out to them about the potential denial or revocation of their license.
Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Councilor Baker Shaw.
Hi, Jamie. Could you please tell us how many crap tables and roulette wheels we're going to have when it's open?
Approximately, I can give you approximate numbers. I believe they are still deciding, but across all properties, I think we're going to be looking at total of 6 craps tables and 4 roulette wheels, if I'm not mistaken.
And that involves all our casinos?
At the properties that the games will be offered in.
Which properties are those? Hard Rock and then Siloam, or which ones?
I'm not sure if I should answer, to be honest with you.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to give away too much in the way of operational information, but offline I could probably share some information with you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilor Vasquez.
Jamie.
Yes.
When the Gaming Commission holds a hearing to revoke a license, is it true, do they go into executive session?
Yes, they do. Okay. The entire proceeding is conducted in executive session. However, the portion of the hearing in which a person provides testimony is taken on the record. We do hold those recordings separate and apart from our Gaming Commission meeting records, but we do have those in case they are subpoenaed as a part of an appeal to the court. In this case, the one that you're aware of, the recordings have been provided to the court along with all the other information on file.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yes, Councilor Critter.
Jamie, who's required to have a gaming license? I think I know this. But
there are basically 2 types of employees at the casino. You have your gaming employees and you have your non-gaming employees. All the gaming employees, such as your dealers, your cashiers, bar and wait staff, management, purchasing, accounting, a lot of the ones that deal with the financial and gaming aspects of those are subject to licensure. There are some individuals at the facilities that are not. Those are primarily looking at food and beverage, hotel, valet, some of the entertainment and retail.
About EVS?
EVS, some EVS if they are management and purchasing decision makers, yeah. If they are not, then they are not subject to licensing.
A lot of the non-money handlers, right?
Right.
Okay, so they're not required to have a gaming license, some of those non-money handlers?
Correct.
Okay. And then in a case we were talking about where, not that case, but a different one, let's say someone is speaking loudly or tap someone on the shoulder, they're not allowed to have a gaming license because someone was afraid that they might be too loud or something, right? Okay. What?
Ask him, this is an appeal, it's before a court, it's an pending licensing matter, and although we're talking hypothetically, we're getting into specifics, and I don't think Mr. Hummingbird should be answering questions.
All right, I can do it better than this. Okay, so handling money is one thing.
Yes.
And there's some positions in the casino that don't handle money that don't need a gaming license.
Correct.
Okay, so if we were concerned about a certain individual, what are we concerned about? Him handling money or being in the same building with everybody else? I don't understand the license. I mean, he can have a license on this side of the table, or she, but something goes wrong and he's a bad guy.
Order, Mr. Speaker. I don't think that this discussion should go any farther. We should not be litigating.
You get pretty close.
Okay.
Jamie, could you meet with Councilor Crittenden and go over that part? Because I had some questions on my own too. You can be a non-handler of money and still need a gaming license.
Correct. There are some that don't actually physically handle money that are
That's
licensed.
food and beverage.
Yeah, I don't
So-
see one side of the table.
Yeah, but would
On
you
that
feel?
side, you can have a license, on this side, you can't.
Yeah,
That's what
would
I
you
don't
feel
understand.
better if you could get Jamie and ask him any question, and even with Christie? I hate to get into these specific. Christie's on one side defending, and you're advocating another side, and Jamie's trying to be the judge here. So anyway,
I can get with him privately.
I'd be glad to answer any questions I
okay,
can.
appreciate that, Counselor.
thought
Anybody else?
Other folks might want to think too.
Okay, everybody good? All right, thank you, Jamie.
You're welcome.
Oh,
Yes, sir, Counselor.
totally non-related. Gaming Commission.
Yes, sir.
How many are there?
There are 5 commissioners.
All Cherokee?
Yes. By statute, they all have to be tribal.
Good deal. Thank you.
Yeah, there's our chairman. Okay, thank you. All right, thank you, Jamie. Human Resources, Dr. Nathan Morton.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Nathan.
Hi, Nathan.
I was listening about the staffing. I'll get with Sharon too to make sure that we're doing all we can to assist with onboarding.
Okay. Does that make everybody feel good? All right.
I don't have much to report this month. I have the written reports. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes, Councilor Warner.
Thank you, sir. Mason, are you guys still handle all the medical side of the hiring and everything? Employees on just medical, pharmacists, doctors, I mean, all the way, anything that we do in our clinics, at our hospital?
We're involved in it.
Okay.
We work with professionals, medical professionals.
Yeah.
We do, in conjunction with health services, to do the hiring, the onboarding, and then.
Okay. All right.
Okay, good. Anybody else? Yes, Councilor Taylor.
I just have one question. I was thinking in our materials, it used to say the average length of time from application to date of hire.
I haven't submitted one of those lately. I am trying to automate it because it's a nice report. It's just very time consuming. So I was testing something out to where I could get the same amount with the same, because I kind of broke it down pretty much every day. It lets you know where they were. So I'm working on it. I could try to do a smaller amount and give examples of how they're doing, but I'm having a little bit of difficulty with the entire report for all hires. So I can do.
So you're working on it, so I can look forward to seeing it for 90 days or so.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
That's not bad.
And I know sometimes it takes some trial and error to get it there, but we get a lot of calls about, you know, I can't sit around, I can't go without a paycheck for 90 days waiting to see if I'm going to get this job. So I would just like to have some hard and fast data to go on.
Okay.
Thank you. That's all I
Anybody
have.
else? Good report.
All right. Thank you very much.
Dropping down to old business. Councilor Shambo.
Speaker, if you would, I make a motion that we move this to the end, make it the last one we address. The other ones won't take very long, and we need some time to discuss this. I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, good move. Okay, so we're going to drop down to new business. Councilor Jordan.
Yes. A resolution confirming the reappointment of Tanya Roselle as a board member of Cherokee Nation Foundation. I put that in the form of a motion.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second. Discussion? Is Tanya here? Yes. Would you please come up? How long have you been on the board, Tanya?
Gosh, I think this is my third term.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
She's done a outstanding job.
Very honored to be
Yes.
asked to be a part of this again, and it's been exciting to see under Janice Randall's leadership, just the financial integrity that's been restored there, and just the amount of, like triple the amount of young people that we are serving now with our programming. So it's been really nice to see those, and very exciting to see the people that are citizens that are able or wanting to put set up endowments and things, and so that's kind of a new thing that we're working on. So exciting things happening.
Good. Any more questions for her? Yes,
I just have a
Councilor Taylor?
comment, and this would go to Patsy Ann also. I really appreciate the board's decision to open up the money for the matching for people that wanted to establish scholarships. I think that money was there for that reason, and it's doubled what you can do with it.
Yes.
So good move on that, and we appreciate it.
Good.
I agree.
Councilor Austin, do you have a question?
No.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Buzzer.
Thank you for serving on the board, Tanya. And I was looking at your resume, and I assume that you're Cherokee.
Yes, my grandmother was an original Roley.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And then you participate in our Cherokee elections?
Yes.
You did?
Yes, I
Good
did.
for you.
Yes, I
Thank
did.
you. Thanks, sir.
Okay. When's the last time you've had a pay increase? Yes. All right. Any other questions?
Yeah, moving right along.
Okay. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Keep up the good work. Appreciate
Thank
you.
you. Thank you all very much.
Yes, Councilor Jordan, take the next one.
Yes, this is a resolution confirming the reappointment of Patsy Nick Smith as a board member of the Cherokee Nation Foundation. I put that in the form of a motion.
Got a motion?
Second.
Second? Any discussion? Patsy? All right. Just tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been on the board and so forth.
I've been on the board 3 years and 6 months.
Okay.
I finished out somebody else's term, then had to be nominated for my own 3 years.
So we appreciate what you do. Okay, any other questions? Yes, Councilor Buzzer.
Just the same question. Thank you for serving on our board. And just a question, you are Cherokee?
Yes, sir. My great-great-grandmother came over on the Trail of Tears.
All right.
Yes, sir. And we haven't created an endowed scholarship in her honor.
And I take you participate in our Cherokee Nation election?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thanks, sir.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, all in
Okay.
favor, signify.
Do I get to say something?
Yes.
Try and stop it.
That was a mistake. I want to thank each and every one of you. I know Stillwell and some of the others, David, have created these endowments. Thank you for remembering us and talking about the endowments. Now, let me remind you all, and this isn't for you, okay? I don't want your Cherokee money. As
You're the
Chief,
only one that's ever said that.
as Chief Baker says, I want that that's hidden in your sock underneath your bed. I want us to be able to create more of these endowments in honor. Now, Janice is on one side, I'm on the other side, okay? I agree with where it is. I want the endowments created so you can honor your families. You can remember those, like my Lozier came over on the Trail of Tears. Oh, wait, there's a Lozier dorm after her, too, isn't there? So I wanted to honor my great-great-grandmother. I wanted her to be remembered in perpetuity. So that gets all the credit. She gets all the benefit by giving money out to scholarships. So don't just think of it in this little council room. When you're talking to your people, or with all due respect, when you're at a funeral, just think, if they started donating money at funerals, or instead of giving you a birthday present that you didn't need, that you just go put in a drawer, they did a donation, and your family went on in perpetuity and was remembered for a long time to come. That comes out better than just, well, I feel like the churches should get it, but that's better than, I'll say it, OSU getting it, OU getting it. You know, people donate to these universities all the time, so our endowments will grow. And we have created a separate scholarship that Janice has written up all the stuff on, and so therefore, if you don't want to create your own in your own memory, in Bird's family's name, then there is a separate one that we can put in the endowment, and it'll grow. And think of all those kids you're helping down the road if you don't want to remember your family. Okay.
Good. Thank you. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Janice, keep up the good work. Appreciate you. Yeah. All right. Counselor E.O. Smith, next.
A resolution confirming the reappointment of J. Blake Fletcher as a commissioner of the Cherokee National Environment Protection Commission. I gladly put this in form of a motion.
Got a motion? Second. I think Mr. Fletcher is here.
Yes.
Very fine man. Councilor Critton.
Yes, sir. I picked blueberries for this guy a long time ago, and I didn't realize it'd take that long to fill up a 5-gallon bucket. I didn't do it very long. But I appreciate you being here. Looking forward to supporting you. I talked to admin a little bit yesterday. There's been 3 that I know of, Adair County, things like this. I would appreciate the call when deciding who's going to be the sponsorship to either, let me say yay or nay. But like I said, there's 3 that I think I know how it works, but I'd sure like to ask you if it's Adair County related, to kind of check and see if I want my name on there too. But so I'm happy to have you here. Family's done great things for Stillwell. Good community leaders, and I'll be supporting you today.
Thank you, sir.
Any other questions? Councilor Buzzer.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher, for volunteering to be on this board. It's an important board. And I don't have to ask you if you're Cherokee because you put it on your resume. That's
Very
good.
proud of that fact, sir.
I can see that you're proud of it. And I take it you do participate in our Cherokee Nation elections.
Very much so.
You do everything else, so I think you would.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for serving.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yes. Councilor Hatfield. You know this guy?
Yes, he is a former neighbor. Yes, he's a good neighbor.
Okay. Well, we'll ask him what he thought about you after the meeting. No, but he's been an outstanding businessman for Tahlequah, for Stillwell for many years. We appreciate your commitment to this agency here, Mr. Buzzer. Anything you want to say?
Got on the board in October of 2013, and it's been a real privilege and a real eye-opener to serve as a environmental commissioner. I think that there's going to be some tough roads ahead of us, and I think that it's something that we all need to be aware of, and look forward to bettering our situation. So I just hope that I can continue to serve on that board, and that there's a really good group of commissioners on it, very diverse and very committed. And I have been privileged to be one of those in the past and hope to in the future. Thank you.
Okay. Got a motion and a second? Yes, Councilor Crittenden.
Joe, can you add me as the old-time sponsor on that deal?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else want to be added as sponsor? Okay. Okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Congratulations. Thank you. Okay. Okay. I started making a motion too, but we got one more here. Old business, Councilor Walkenstick.
Thank you, Speaker. This is an act amending the DNCA Title 40, Cherokee Nation Employee Rights Act. For that form of a motion.
Got a motion. Is Diane Kelly here?
I'm right here.
Okay. Got a motion?
Second.
Got a second? Discussion. You got the floor, Diane.
Okay, thank you. Several months back, when the joint venture and the mentor protege was visited on, we told you that we were going to go back and put some provisions together, our general provisions, and we have actually done that. And there are copies that should have been sent to you, and I'll take responsibility for not getting them out to you, but they are being sent to you. They were signed off on March the 31st, I believe. That's when they were completed. Those are our procedures, our administrative procedures that we carry out the act on. And a lot of the stuff that was being proposed by Mr. Walkenstick, Councilman Walkenstick, is in our general operating procedures. And one of the things that I want to share with you is that I've been involved with the TARO since its inception. In fact, I was one of the ones who came back when Ross Swimmer was the chief and asked that we put a TARO program together. We've been operating the TARO program for 34 years, probably older than some of the people here. Indian preference was always in rules and regulations way before TARO even started. It was in the bureau programs that we had before we even contracted them. But a lot of tribes did not exercise Indian preference. We actually was in Washington at a meeting, an employment training meeting, when they told us that we could take federal funds and apply that to a TARO program. We did our research. We came back and found out that there were no tribes in the state of Oklahoma that were actually operating a TARO program. We had the Native American Rights Fund to work with us. At the time, Ross told us to go to Boulder and meet with John Eckelhawk. He assigned one of his attorneys to come back and work up the provisions for us. They were based on a reservation. It was the Crow Reservation and the Navajo Reservation that we looked at their regulations. Those regulations, or that law, has been tweaked 2 different times. At one time, we had hearings with a lot of people to get input from them, and those were blessed by EEOC in order for us to get EEOC funding. We are not a reservation, but the whole state of Oklahoma is considered a reservation state, so therefore we were the first tribe to enact TARO in the state of Oklahoma. We are the largest TARO nationwide, and we ventured off into areas that a lot of other tribes have never done. We actually have well over 800 businesses. When you talk to some of the neighboring tribes, and you can ask the Chalks and Chicks, because the Creeks have a TARO program, but it's not called TARO. They have probably 40, 50 something businesses they're working with. TARO was not enacted to bring business to the Cherokee Nation. It was enacted to get Indians out there and get them into businesses. It was not just specifically designed for Cherokees. And our law is Cherokee. We've had it for 34 years. And yes, it's changed drastically. When we first started this, we actually were just monitoring housing sites, rehab sites. We weren't doing any construction. The very first piece of construction that we did, where we did Indian preference, was the Talking Leaves Job Corps Center. It was built with United States Department of Labor money, and they allowed us to use Indian preference, and we oversaw it as force account. We did not actually start venturing off into big projects until there was an Attorney General appointed at the time who was Julian Fite. Julian told us, if you're going to have a law, you're going to have to enact it. And he said that you will have to change as the culture changes and as things change. And that's basically where we're at today. That's why we're having this discussion about joint ventures or mentor-proteges. In order for us to grow within the Cherokee Nation, you have to have businesses that can bond. You have to have that insurance capability. We've had to go back and redo things, and had we not had the insurance and the bonding in place, then the Cherokee Nation would have had to absorb that cost. That's one of the reasons why you have to have that bonding capability. You have to have the people that have the credentials, the equipment. You also have to be able to grow your Indian-owned businesses. A lot of our Indian-owned businesses are not big enough to do some of the bonding, especially some of the things that we ventured off into with the health facilities, because building a health facility is a little different than building a casino. And when this was brought before us, it's something that I feel like that as the Cherokee Nation being the largest TARO, it's something that we can venture off into and we can do a good job. We took our general provisions. Willard Mounts worked on those provisions along with Chad Hershaw in the AG's office. They put those together, and our provisions are working. The staff are working on them right now, and we've not had any problems. And rest assured, I've been here for 40 years. If I'm going to have a problem, I'm going to go to Bill John, our principal chief, and I'm going to ask him to convene the council so that we can change the law if we need to change it. But right now, I feel like that what we have in our general provisions address a lot of the things that Councilman Walking Stick put in his proposal to change some of the law. I commend Councilman Walking Stick for jumping out there and looking at this, because I am very sincerely interested in council members that are interested in Indian preference. I'm interested that they want to see our businesses grow. That's what we're all about. We're not gatekeepers. We're not here to keep people out. We're here to work with tribes, and we're here to work with our construction people. We're here to get Cherokees jobs. We're here to get Indians jobs. And where we can grow, that's what we want to do. So I am saying that I reached out to Councilman Walking Stick yesterday. We could not make connections, but I felt like that when I saw what had been put together on the comments and the revised provisions, they are being addressed in our general operating provisions. So I really don't see any need in it moving any forward unless there are questions. I'll be glad to answer those, but my staff are competent and capable of carrying this out, and they've done it for a number of years. Willard has been involved with both times that we actually changed things.
Okay, Councilor Lay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And you and your staff are competent. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Councilman Lay.
And the one thing that you and I have talked about is that I knew you were working on this problem, and I guess it is a problem, that mentor-protege, because we're seeing a non-TARO company build our health care facility right now, and it kind of bothered me. And I think it bothered a lot of us. And you found a way, and we appreciate that. The only thing that I didn't know was that you had a procedure already, and you never sent it back to council for us to look at. When I saw David's act, I assumed you and David were working on something to update it right at first, and then I heard the discussion. And so I think David had a good idea, just like you said. Y'all had already preempted that, and it's not just TARO, or it's not just any one department. Whenever this council passes a law, we never seem to get back what I call policy guidelines because of that law from any of the departments. It just never comes back to us. And so we didn't know about that.
And I apologize sincerely.
And we appreciate your work. And it's, I remember Janelle Lattimore Fulbright on the 90-day scripts a couple of years ago demanded that policy guideline be brought back and approved by council. That was, I think, the only time I ever saw that. since I've been here. Could be another time, but I've never seen it before. We trust you all to do it, but we'd like to see the end result as soon as you get it. And you said it was completed in March?
It was signed off on, I believe I signed off on it June the 2nd.
Okay, I never saw it. I don't know if anybody else did, but I think if David had seen it, I think he could probably go through and start checking off all the things that he was interested in.
And I think if David and I could have connected earlier, then we could have done this.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Chairman.
Anybody else?
Not of her, but I do have questions.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The proposed act says that it is authored by our attorney, Talina, and sponsored by Councilman Walkingstick. And could you guys explain that process?
So you want to know the process for writing legislation?
This particular piece of
This piece? I was contacted by Counselor Walkingstick.
We'll let her finish first.
I was contacted by Counselor Walkingstick, asked to revise our TARO law to address some of the issues that were discussed several months ago. This was probably back in, December of last year. And so after speaking with him, I went out, did some research. I didn't have a copy of the internal policy to go off of, so I just wrote those based on what Counselor Walkingstick had addressed.
Councilor Walkingstick?
Yes, I did reach out to Talina due to the contract that you guys had received, and I did feel like our TARO laws had been manipulated by our Attorney General's office, and so I was wanting to fill the loophole, and I asked our council attorney to tighten up our law where it wasn't so vague and there wasn't any loopholes. And, so in the future, our TARO will have its integrity and its strength, and our employees that do an excellent job in TARO, that they won't be put in a tough place, that there will be a law and concrete in place. And so Talina drafted that. I visited with other TARO vendors we have and had them look over it. And a lot of them felt like this legislation will give them a fair shake at bids and proposals down the line, and that so our TARO isn't taking advantage. And the intent, what Diane was talking about was TARO, was to put the Cherokee dollar in the Cherokee pocket. That is the whole purpose of TARO within the Cherokee Nation. And you know, my 7 years being on the council, I've seen this act amended many different ways, and I always seen the direction of the council was to looking out for our Indian people, our Indian vendors, and they have molded me in that same fashion. And that's this legislation for you today is an act that I stand on the shoulders of our former council members that was on this council prior to us. And so anyways, Talina, there's many vendors were very high on this, and anyways, that's all I have. Councilman Austin, that's how the conversation took place.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Walkingstick, regarding the 21-page confidential document you distributed to council, both physically and electronically, can you please answer an open meeting when, where, and how it first came into your possession?
Mr. Chairman,
yes, we're getting into, let's stay on the topic here of what we have on the agenda here.
And how is this not on topic?
Yeah. And what I want to, well, wait a minute. What I want to hear is what Diane talked about in the beginning. Now, are you two in agreement that we've already have legislation in place to address the needs that you were recommending?
Diane addressed we have policies in place, but there is no law in place for mentor-protege agreements and joint ventures. there's no legislation in our current act that addresses those.
Okay, she said if you two had gotten together, so you still stand that we have current policies in place that already addresses what
Yes.
Councilor Walkenstick is
Yes,
proposing?
it's in the revised general provisions that we operate under.
Okay.
It's basically, here's your act, and these are the provisions, as Councilman Lay pointed out. Here is our general operating procedures. This is what Willard and then worked on.
Yes.
And that was incorporated. That was one of the things that we told you when this came up before you, when it was voted on 3 or 4 months back.
Right.
That we would work on the general operating provisions to get that put in here. So
Okay.
that's what we did. And that's why you have that document that was sent to you that shows the 3 columns.
Okay. Councilor Vasquez.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Councilor Walkenstick is the one that opened this door, and I fully believe, really believe, we should let Keith finish, because it does relate to what Walkenstick started with, and that's regarding the 21-page document, and I think we should go ahead and allow him to finish.
No, that's getting off the agenda here. I want to stay with the agenda.
He
Councilor
presented
Taylor.
this as backup documentation for why we should consider this. If this were my business's
But
information
it's
that
not
had
your
been
business,
handed
but
out,
it's not.
but I'm saying, I want to know where this came from, because
Okay.
this looks like a
Well, I think
confidential document.
It may be, but we're not going to discuss it here.
Why not?
We're just not. We're going to vote on this legislation right here. That's on the agenda. If you want to bring that issue up at a later time, we'll put it on the agenda and you can discuss it with Councilor Walkenstick, but we're not going to do that right now. So you have a motion and a second.
Can I
Yes.
make a comment? Whether or not you vote for or against this legislation, we may need to, if you vote against it, revise this, because there's some language in the actual act that talks about the appeals board. And since the employee appeals board was dissolved last year, then that part for sure needs to be stricken, because it doesn't exist. So just,
Okay. If we vote for it.
if you vote for it.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of passing this signify by saying aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Did you get that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. I think that takes care of the business items. All in favor to adjourn? Got a motion? Second? We're adjourned.